Hey guys, this is Nanoprepmo. This video is for any of you who are doing Nanowrimo this year. I did a previous video introducing what Nanowrimo is, so I'm not going to get too deeply into that, but I am going to talk about 5 tips I have for passing Nanowrimo. And passing Nanowrimo, or winning Nanowrimo, I guess, is to get 50,000 words written in the month of November. So there are 5 things that I feel like are really important to help you win NaNoWriMo. And they are mostly things that you can do in the October Prepmo phase. The first one of those is to plan your story. So there are some people out there who are pantsers and they can just write by the seat of their pants and they love it and it goes great and they have a lot of success that way. I am not a pantser. I am certainly a plotter, although my plots are fairly vague. So for my NaNoWriMo project, I have 11 scenes plotted out. And I know what happens in the scenes. I know what I want from those scenes, but I don't also, they're a couple lines each on my planning paper. It's not, real detailed. I recommend you do an outline of your story so you know where it's going, you know how it starts, you know how it ends, and you know a lot of the points in between. I also recommend you do character sketches. This is a thing that tells you, at least for your main characters, who they are, kind of who their family members are, what their internal and external conflict is, and what their story arc is going to be over the course of the book. How are they going to change, and what is going to happen to them, and who are they going to be at the end versus the beginning. So planning is vital. It helps you to not get stuck and not get like, oh my gosh, I need to keep writing. I have all these words to do, but I have no idea where my story is going. And I think for a lot of people, that is the biggest killer in NaNoWriMo, is to get stuck not being sure where is your story going. If you don't plot and you don't have a good grasp of your characters ahead of time, it can be really, really easy to stall out, especially once you hit the middle of a novel, because honestly, the middle of a novel for most people, including me, is the hardest part. Okay, number two hint. Pick a genre you know, and preferably one that is formulaic. This might be a controversial thing to say, but I'm going to say it anyway. NaNoWriMo is not a great time to try something that is going to be super hard and super complicated. And for me, the time that I won NaNoWriMo, I was just writing a romance, and that is typically what I do. I write a lot of genre romance, and the book that I won NaNoWriMo on was a very typical romance. The other times that I've done NaNoWriMo and have failed it, most of those were books that were a lot more complicated. I tried a dystopian that I'd written a dystopian before, but it was a romance dystopian, so it followed more of the genre rules for a romance. So as long as I was following that within the confines of the conflicts of the world, it was fine. But this one was a dystopian, and I knew my world, I had my scenes plotted out, but it just wasn't working. And I'd not written a dystopian before, and it was just really complicated. Last year, I also had a dystopian, and it was a sci-fi dystopian. And I was so excited to be writing it, and I thought, this book, I have so much momentum, and I have a lot more experience as an author. It should be fine. And while I got a lot written, I got probably, I think, 20,000 words, and I have since finished the draft for that one. The first dystopian, I still haven't finished that draft, and that was years ago. I have finished that my draft to that dystopian, but I learned that it's harder to do something really challenging for NaNoWriMo. And especially if you really want to win NaNoWriMo, and that's important to you to get your 50,000 words, I would say stick to something that you're used to, the genre that you typically write in. So if you're a romance writer, stick to romance. If you're a mystery writer, stick to mystery. If you are writing your first book, I say try to find something that you can write within a genre where there are some rules and some layouts so that you don't have endless choices for beats. For instance, in a romance, I know that my characters are going to start the book meeting or re-meeting if they were previously lovers. They're going to spend some time falling in love. There's going to probably be a first kiss. There's probably going to be some bedroom scenes, maybe one, maybe more, depending on the characters and the plot. The climax of the book will be the characters have something happen that almost breaks them up, and then they will end up together happily ever after, because that is how a romance works. If you have a mystery, you have a body found or whatever, usually it's a body. Let's call it a murder mystery, make this easy. A body found, you have a setup, body found, detective investigates, detective solves a mystery. Clues happen in between. Usually, especially if it's a cozy mystery, right before or right after they find out who the bad guy is, they are almost murdered. So the detective is almost murdered. So these are just kind of stories that have beats, that they run a certain way. And I feel like for NaNoWriMo, having a story that has beats, that has a formula, that has this is the way it goes, is really helpful, because you're not trying to grasp infinite choices, where if you're just writing general fiction, I think that can be really difficult, especially as a first novel, because your choices are infinite and you don't have the beats to guide you. You don't necessarily know where your ending is. You don't necessarily know what plot points you have to hit along the way. Whereas with genre fiction, you typically do. Even things like an adventure. You have the inciting incident, you have the adventure that they go on, you have usually some mentoring by a wizard or somebody else more experienced, all the things that go and get in their way, and then they either succeed in their adventure or they don't, and consequences. So, like a hero's journey type thing. You want to be following something to have the easiest time writing. So write something that you are familiar with and that has a simple formula of beats, and that you understand the beats and have written that out ahead of time. Number 3, research. Because you will have already outlined your story, you will know generally what you might need to research. For my NaNoWriMo project, I have 2 characters who have physical illnesses that are going to get in the way of their romance. And I have already done a lot of researching into those illnesses to see how they would affect the character's everyday life, what are typical complications with those illnesses, things like that. One of the worst things you can do during NaNoWriMo is have to stop and research stuff. Now, I love research, and I am one of those weird people that I do tend to research while writing. I don't let the research get too crazy and detailed and research instead of writing, but sometimes when you're researching, you can get really brilliant ideas about things sparked from like the one thing you're looking at. Like you're looking at this, and then that leads to this, which leads to a really cool plot twist. That is great, but it's not appropriate for NaNoWriMo, especially because you're trying to get the words out, you're trying to get it all written. You don't have time for research. So if you need to figure out before you start writing how the dairy industry worked in 1800s, do that first. And I'm in the middle of a portal romance right now where the guy is a dairy farmer. So I had to know how they made cheese in 1800s, industry. So I learned how to make cheese, watching videos on making cheese. But anyway, do your research first, know what you need to know so that you don't have to stop in the middle of writing for your day and end up with 1,000 word count because you had to research how cheese was made in the 1800s. You'll be grateful that you researched ahead of time. You may still have a couple small things, and you can always just leave parentheses figure out how cheese was made in your story. But if it's an important plot point, and my guy's a dairy farmer, so it's an important plot point, you want to research all of that ahead of time. So if there's stuff that you know you need for your plot, go research it. If you need to know medieval dress, if you need to know how something is made, if you need to know, police procedural stuff, whatever it is, go research it before you start NaNoWriMo, because you don't want to have to stop and spend a day in research. You want to just be getting your words out. Number 4, have a writing plan. And what I mean by that is know what you're going to be able to do and when you're going to be able to do it. I recommend trying to get a little more words in at the beginning of NaNoWriMo. Number one, because you'll probably just have better, easier flow. And number two, because especially during the week of Thanksgiving, you're not going to have maybe as much time to write. Maybe you will. Maybe you're a student and you'll have more time to write. But for myself, we are always so busy over Thanksgiving that I know I'm not going to get as much words written. And if I'm ahead, I may be able to take a day and not write on Thanksgiving, for instance, or whatever, and still be where I need to be word count wise. So if you can, in the beginning, maybe put out 2,000 words instead of your 1,667, and give yourself a little bit of leeway. And that way too, if you start to lose momentum, if you need a mental health break, if you feel blocked, any of those things, you're already ahead. So plan out, look at the things in your month that are going to maybe put you behind and see if you can work around them. See what days you're going to be able to be most productive. And even though you're supposed to do 1,667 every day, sometimes that may not happen. Some days you may do 100 words and then, like, if you work full time, and then do a weekend where you do 5,000. Whatever it is you think you need to do, just figure out how you're going to do it. Try to make sure you're a little bit ahead and just have a plan in place. Also, if you don't typically write, figure out where are you going to write? What are you going to write on? How are you going to do your word count checks if whatever you're using to write doesn't have word count? I'm going to be using this. This is my Neo. I'm going to be doing my NaNoWriMo on my Neo. This does not have a word count feature that I know of. If it does, I don't know how to use it. So I'm going to be timing myself, and I'm going to be trying to do 2 hours of writing most days. And then every week, I'm going to transfer my writing from here to my computer. And that should have me about 2,000 words a day-ish. But whatever you're doing, whether it's handwriting or typing on a typewriter or an electronic typewriter or a computer, figure out what you're going to use, when you're going to do it. Are you going to get up 2 hours early? Are you going to stay up 2 hours late? What do you need to succeed at NaNoWriMo? Whatever it is, have a plan, because the last thing you want is for November 1st to come and you to sit there and go, I don't know when I'm going to write. You should have figured out beforehand. And the final tip for NaNoWriMo is get support. There are so many places and people you can get support from during NaNoWriMo. If you can, a NaNoWriMo buddy is amazing. I have a writers group, so we are going to be meeting multiple times during the month to do writing sprints. There are online groups, there are local groups. You can get on the NaNoWriMo websites and find out when the meetups are in your area or near you and go and do writing sprints with groups. So many places to find support, and support is so important for NaNoWriMo because especially by the middle of it, it can be very hard, it can be very difficult, and you can feel like you are just exhausted and tired and you don't want to write your stupid book anymore. I know this because that's how I usually feel about midway through NaNoWriMo. Like, I just don't want to write my stupid book anymore. But when you have support, you can have friends who will be like, no, it's okay. You're just going through a hard time, or, here, have some help with this plot point you're having an issue with, or whatever it is. Whatever it is, I know you can do it, and I know that the more support you have, the better chance you will have of actually beating NaNoWriMo this year. And I want everyone to succeed, and I want you to be there for me too. Feel free to message me. I'm gonna hopefully be doing weekly NaNoWriMo vlogs, so if you don't have any other support, feel free to message me and just tell me where you're at, what you're doing, because I want to know and I'm cheering for you. I want everybody to succeed, and I will try to keep you updated on how I'm doing. Hopefully this year I can win. Last year was not a great year. I think I did 20,000 words, but I didn't quite finish. But even if, and this I guess is the most important message, even though I'm telling you, yes, I want you to get 50,000 words, any amount of words you had that you didn't have before is a win. So even if you don't end up with the 50,000 words, I'm still proud of you, and I'm still so glad that you have more words than you did when you started. So Let's get to writing, and good luck on Nanowrimo. This is Jane. My social media is below, so if you want to connect with me off of YouTube, you are welcome to do that too. I am a writer. If you would like to check out any of my books, those links are below as well, and I'll see you next time. Bye.